go. Nope, we're good. Okay, go ahead and move the call to order, please, real quick. Mr. Becker, would you please do the invocation?
Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for letting us come together and discuss the county's business. Please give us the wisdom as we go through discussions tonight to make the best decisions for the county. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All righty. Before we approve the agenda, I'd like to make a motion to add one item that was not on here. I think has everybody got a copy of this? Mr. Long, you did? It's a request for a very small budget adjustment for the highway department. I'd like to amend the agenda to put that to new business item B. It would be item B9.
Mr. Chairman, I have something to add too.
Okay, go ahead.
It was just, I want to add any discussion about Comer Barn, giving that grant lane back. Just
Okay.
on the agenda, we can do that.
So we can amend mine that item number B9 would be the highway department, and B10 would be the Comer Barn discussion.
Got one more.
Okay?
Unless I'm overlooking it, is the nonprofit I got a report back from.
Yours, it's, yeah, you're right you're under mine, on the budget committee chairman. You're gonna go right at the beginning.
Oh, okay, good.
Yep, we got you. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Under old business, item F, education amendment, budget
Yes.
amendment,
Yep.
that has not passed the education committee. In fact, Director Phillips asked for it to be pulled from the last agenda meeting on the 27th
Yep.
of October, so
Yeah.
that does not need to be there. Along with, under new business, A1, which are year-end encumbrances, that was sent back to the Board of Education.
Yep.
And I have not heard anything back from that. In fact, Director Phillips said that it would not be coming back to the commission, and it's back. And then the last is the LEAP fund, which we refer to old business under the Education Committee.
Page 78 to 86.
So what are you proposing for the
Well,
LEAP fund?
pulled out of this agenda and, like I say,
Because that was
back to
not
the
voted
Education
on?
Committee where they
Okay.
never passed.
All right.
It's page 78 to
Got
86.
it. Okay, so just to be super clear, and y'all might have to help me. So we are, for the amendments here, we are striking old business item F. We are striking new business item A1. We are adding new business B9 for the highway department, and 10 discussion of Comer Barn, and there was one more.
The law director runs out November 3rd.
Yes, 90 days from September 1st is roughly end of November, beginning of December. And so my interim pay was only approved for 90 days. We won't have a new law director by the end of the 9 days, so about allocating to continue that. I asked David's staff to put it on there.
Yeah, he's got me somewhere. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. He mentioned it, but yeah.
So would we add that to, I guess, item B10?
It'd be,
Or B11 now? Okay.
Yeah, B11. I think it would be a
B11.
request to what extent at 45
Yeah,
days.
extension, we can determine the amount, the length then, just extension of the interim. Okay. Have everybody got those notes? Do we know what the amendments are? We've got a bunch of them. All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve that agenda with those amendments.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. Got it. Recognition of the public, I don't think we have
We had a
anybody.
meeting minutes.
Is there a list or? Raise our hand?
Yeah.
Sorry, was there a list or do we just raise our hand?
There isn't a list, but if you would like to speak,
Just wanna
is there, let me make sure is there anybody else who'd like to speak? So we just have one? Okay. Please come forward and state your name and where you're from.
Yeah, I'm Wes Dunkel. I live at 321 Buffalo Run in Goodlettsville. Just had a quick thing about budget amendments 3 and 4. It's finally here. Passed school board 920, was submitted to the county commission 1014. So just want to look in here and just mention I'm for this very strongly. I think a lot of you probably heard from me. And so wanted to make sure that that you guys understand these are not county funds, these are state grant funds, and we're gonna lose this by, I think, December 31st. So if you have any questions, I believe Miss Katie Brown may be here tonight. I'm not sure if she is or not, but she said she may be. So I hope all of your questions have been answered up to this point, and so hopefully I let you know I very much appreciate you guys passing this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can you tell me your name and address? I
Sure,
didn't get
Wes
that.
Dunkel, W-E-S?
I'm sorry, what was it?
Wes, W-E-S?
Uh-huh.
I can write it if you want. And then Dunkel, D-U-E-N-K-E-L.
And your address?
Yep, 321 Buffalo Road.
Okay, is that Gallatin?
Good.
Goodlettsville, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Go ahead.
Couple quick things. In the minutes on item 4E, in the ARPA report, it says David explained to the committee that the 1.5 million for ARPA machines, is that the election voting machine, or what is this ARPA machines?
Election machine.
Election.
Should be
Okay,
good.
so
That was my-
Probably need to
that
add the
should
word
change.
election.
Good call.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to make sure. That's what I thought. Just wanted to clarify. So that changes. And then the only other one that I thought was under 5I, Mr. Schmidt's last name is spelled incorrect. So change that.
That is a common
Ah.
thing, they've been doing that for years.
Anyway, that's what I
Where's
had.
that
I'll change the motion if the second agrees to approve it with corrections.
That's all I have.
All right, second agrees. Motion's on the floor. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All righty. So we have my report today is going to be handed over to Mr. Becker for a report on the nonprofit.
All right. The nonprofit that the ad hoc committee met on this past Friday, and unfortunately, there's too quick a turnaround time. There's not a printed list, but we met in this room from 9 a.m. till 2:45. Heard from several great organizations and so forth. Just as a little background, the commission is allocated up to $100,000 for these nonprofit groupings, if you will. I've got a list right here. There's not printout, so I'm not even going to go through it all. But I can read it, or what I'd like to do is the total here. Again, it was up to 100. The total that the nonprofit committee is recommending is $92,500. So we had the ability to spend it all, but we're not going to spend it just to spend it. Mr. Hyde was here all day with us on that committee as well. But what I'd like to do is make a motion to just approve this to the full commission, and then obviously by that time, the list we print out, everybody can look at it and ask questions on the full floor. So that'd be my motion. Again, the total is $92,500.
We have one in queue.
Who all was on the committee? It was going to be appointed last time we hear about it.
Correct. So I was on the committee, Mr. Hyde was on the committee, Ms. Bergdorf was on the committee, but she was unable to join us that day. And then we had 3 private citizens. We had Catherine Lau, I think that's her, Catherine Lowe or Lau. We had Tiffany Madigan, and we had Mike Ryan, is it not Mike?
Mike Bryan.
Mike Ryan, sorry, I apologize. So those, yeah.
I wasn't sure. I didn't see any. I never saw an agenda notice, or I must have missed it. I just didn't know you guys were meeting, so I was just curious.
Yeah, so those are, and I think
And
I think
that's
Mr.
probably-
Bryan said that you sort of really recommended him.
Yeah, I
and
did.
And Tiffany.
Miss Madigan, I just know she has a lot of experience with.
Yeah, they were both extremely, and Catherine as well. All 3 were very valuable, and Catherine Catherine does this type of stuff for a fund that's over $1 million and so forth. So she has a lot of good background, and Miss Madigan does as well. And Mr. Bryan was able to join us about midway through the day. So very good day, very good discussions, and again, that's my motion is to approve this to the full commission.
All right, motion's on the table. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Could I say, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to commend the chairman of that committee. He really did a superb job that day and kept us on task and moving, and I don't think we were behind schedule at any point during the day. He did a very fine job.
Unlike the budget chairman, who was.
Well, I didn't say that. I mean, we were flying.
Let's be on
Or the
schedule.
general law.
This one, though, we started with legislative, all righty.
If y'all want to do some training.
Gotta have the video up, though, when we do the training. So, all righty, Mr. Isabel, Portland County Mayor, please, sir.
No report, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lawing.
The first item I'll go over is the revenue analysis. It should be the sheet with the colored bar. It should have been passed out, is it?
I didn't know you wanted me to pass
Yes,
that right now, I'm
pass it
sorry.
out. Okay, what we got here is the revenue analysis, and it has a couple of things. This is for the local revenues for the entire county, somewhere around about $213.2 million. If you look at the first column, that is the actual. I already made it around. The first column will give you the description of your revenues. The second is the amount budgeted. The next column will be your year-to-date, budgeted to date. The next will be your collections, your budget variance to date, and your estimated annual. Looking down through there, anything that's pink, we think, based on current data, that we're going to be short. Anything green, we think that's going to be a positive, and it has the percentages. And these are very conservative estimates. Right now, if we reprojected the revenues, I would estimate we're going to bring in about 1.26% more, which is about $2.6 million. On the face, that looks good, and these are conservative, but as me and Mr. Schoaf was talking earlier, there is concerns because you do have an inflationary rate much greater than what we're over budget. So
Yeah, I just want to mention real quick on this, because we've had several discussions on this, but I just want a 1.26. So you got a variance, positive variance, about 2.7 million. So you're up 1.25, and I'm only saying this because we're going to be going through with the fine comb today. Match that against what I would call a negative variance, about 8% inflation year over year. And I would argue that you're effectively in the red here potentially, and so this is gonna be super tight. We had I think last year about $2.4 million worth of requested salary increases, which we didn't have. That would have eaten that up right there. So I don't want to belabor the point, but that's not a good number. I don't think that's a great number going in. It's not the end of the world, but it's got our eye.
Do we have a range of how negative it's going to be?
We don't.
We
I mean,
don't.
these are projections. It's not
Yeah,
perfect. I'm
yeah.
just,
you're over your revenue projections, so you're looking good. But the thing is, we're facing a very steep inflation.
Right.
We haven't picked up next year's growth. But another reason these are conservative is because we've only got 2 to 3 months of data. Because a lot of the data, July and August, we went into last year's receivables.
Right.
So we've really got less than 25% of the year. So I've been super conservative on your positives. And also, the property tax rolls haven't went out at this point, so it makes, if you look, there's 0 variance on all those. Based on what I've seen preliminary, I think you're going to have a positive variance there that's pretty good too. But I don't want to put anything out until we see the final numbers.
Right.
I think that 1.26 is low, and then you have next year's growth too. But I think everybody's pretty much heard there's a very distinct possibility of a recession, which I think we've actually in at this point. But yeah, that's what they're saying. I think we're actually in one based on every
the historical
measure.
definition of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
We're in a recession, so that's the other concern. We don't know how the rest of the year is going to trend. So I was conservative on these, but what I'm saying is according to how deep the recession goes, if these numbers even hold. But right now, we're off to a good start as far as comparative to budget, other than the inflationary pressure.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Of the finance director. So you're projecting us over about 1.26%. Granted, with the inflation number, it could be under. What have we been running the last 2 to 3 years?
And I'd have to think, I think we've been running somewhere 2.5% to 3%, if I recall.
Because the reason I ask that question is there's some months I go under.
Right, we've been running year
So
over
that's why
year.
I'm asking.
These early years, we've been running positive 2.5% to 3%. And we also have a fairly, before these inflationary pressures, a fairly good amount of unspent appropriations that go back into the fund. So, for instance, the general fund at the first of the year, I believe it was somewhere around $4 million difference between revenue and expenditure. So you'll need the revenue excess and the turnovers to make you break even. In the last couple of years, we went pretty far into the black or green, or however you want to say it, but there's still the concern because right now the recession coupled with a inflationary pressure is very concerning. But for the year, in the most part, you're off to a good start.
And just one more follow-up, and this doesn't include any ARPA cash injections.
No, we wouldn't include those. These are just your local revenues. As we approach budget, we'll actually bring you in revenues for everything. Right now, there's none that would flag you at this point that would warrant us to bring all those revenues in. Because it would take quite a bit more time. And that's what we do during budget
Yes,
time.
that's-
When during budget time, we'll start bringing you
Which is
just
gonna
for
be a
all
lot
of
of
it.
fun. So-
Even before budget, I'll start bringing in the regular meetings, so it does increase your time frame there as we get more data. But that's the end of that report. And the item B is EMS COVID-19 hazard pay. Out of the 100 and I think about 30 employees at the EMS, they actually did not understand the ARPA schedule and had a few of them coded wrong. Their request is to continue for 6 of the 7 employees for the rest of the year, which would be about $25,000 out of ARPA. Looking at the ARPA budget right now, it would support that, but that has been the request from EMS.
So I'll entertain a motion here first so that I can speak to it, but I do have some notes here because I've called Mr. Miller on this. But we just do a motion here to approve this, or I would maybe entertain a motion to move it to old business, and I'll explain why in a minute.
Second.
Well, I'd like somebody else, because I'm not
Oh.
sure here. So you
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. So here's my notes here. One, looking into this, philosophically, what has happened here is that I recognize that this is one-time money that's been applied toward people's Now, technically, you can argue whether it was that salary or was that a bonus. I get it, but when you've gotten 30 months worth of pay, you've gotten this built into your system, and you've built that into your daily budget. It's effectively salary. I don't really care what you call it. And so I would argue that it is bad. This was bad practice to put one-time money toward effective salary, even if you called it something else. All that said, that's in the past. Nothing we can do about that. Where we're in here, the situation we're in, and keep in mind what we were just talking about that barely kind of squeaking by. We're in a situation where we're going to have to wean ourselves off of this one-time money so that we don't have people take effective pay cuts. That's the situation we're in right here. We're going to have to try to figure out how to wean ourselves off of this as best we can. So that's item one. Item two is we've already had some misspending of this. Miscategorization of it. I won't call it misspending, but miscategorization of the spending. So I spoke to Mr. Miller about it. There's some more discovery here that needs to be done, in my view, for just this particular item. It's not a ton of money, but it in my view also just kind of exacerbates the problem. So I think we should move this to old business. Allow a little bit more time for Mr. Long and Mr. Miller to come up with a good solution here. So, in a second, I think we've already have a motion on the floor.
Just want to clarify, you gave a couple options. You said either send to old business or approve, and then he said so moved. Can you clarify what your motion was?
The motion was to postpone it to the
Put it on
next
the old
meeting.
business.
Put it in old business.
Just wanted to be very
All
clear.
right. Are there any more thoughts or questions here? I just wanted to kind of put those out because we've done a little bit of digging. No questions, all right. All in favor to move to old business, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All righty.
The next
Mr.
two
Moore?
items, C and D, are just, one is just to show the cash flows for the highway department as requested by the state. Right now, we're looking through the month of September, we're about $170,000 better than we thought we would be, so it's running positive. And the other is just to inform the commission that the financial statements will be available November 21st for the month of October. And I just need a motion for those to be spread on the minutes.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Mr. Long?
Next is under old business is the things that are under general operations, and there's three items, which is the new health department, the new EMS, and the election machines. I'm sorry, the election machines toward the maintenance facility.
I'm gonna make a motion here, on item one, reconsider the funding. Mr. Chairman.
Well, we're not on,
Are we not?
we're not there yet. We're on item D, they're just financial.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
statement.
thought you were.
Yeah, we're.
I did
Yeah, I
C
was
and D
kinda, yeah,
together.
you kinda.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did C and D together.
Yeah, so.
I said item C and D both. together.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm sorry, I read them together, I thought they
Sorry,
grouped them.
so, yeah, I was a little confused. Okay, so we're on old business, item A. Item A1, or are you on all of them?
One right now.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Mansfield.
Basically, I move that as far as any funding or expenditures, it's renovating the current building, not building a new building at Shackle Island, because I guarantee none of my constituents want that. And we've toured that building, and they definitely need rehab, and I'm okay allocating funds towards that if the state's putting up money and the county's got a match. I don't know what that calculation greatly reduces to renovations versus building a new facility. But I am opposed to building a new building in Shackle Island. So I will oppose that. But I move that if we're going to reconsider funding, is not for the construction of a new health building, it's to rehab the existing facility.
So the motion is to
Reconsider funding.
reconsider funding to rehab the existing.
Correct.
Got it.
I'll second that.
If you want to
Okay.
pull the appropriation for that one, probably the cleanest way to do it.
I'm
Because it's
fine.
100,000, and I think they've spent about 46 to find out whatever's left and pull the appropriation.
That's what we need to do.
That's.
It'd be the cleanest way.
Okay.
Figure out first if we
Are you
owe
good with that?
anything else.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Well, second is
I'm
good with that?
with that.
Okay.
Okay,
So discussion, yeah, go ahead.
discussion. Well, we had talked about looking at the entire health department. I have requested already from Hal Hendricks that I've asked him for about 9 different things, and he's working on them right now. One of them is to do a tour with at least the General Operations Committee and invite all county commissioners who would like to attend. And that is to review the buildings, review the costs involved. We know that the building in Hendersonville, 40% of the people that come in there are from another county. And so I think I believe that we're going to be able to renovate that building and not have to build a new building. But we're not, in my opinion, we're not at that point yet until we do the tour, we review the documentation that I've requested of Hal Hendricks, and then we assess it at general operations and then pass it on to budget. I think that's where we're at. So I think we're gonna move slow on it, just because it takes time to make these things happen.
And the other thing I just want to add is what Commissioner Mansfield said, the people have told him, his constituents, and I know we've repeated this, but it bears repeating, his constituents do not want this new construction of a building in their district. District 18, I've spoken to plenty of people. We want the health department. We want the health department for the people, but we want to renovate what we've got, because there's a lot of people in that district that prefer to have it there for many reasons. And I mean, one was, you know, you and I were talking about
next to the
next to the
hospital.
hospital and stuff. It's just they are sick and tired of us just getting in the business of demolishing a building, and let's just go ahead and build another structure somewhere else, they would prefer to see us do our due diligence. And there's no question, it needs work. I mean, we toured it, it needs work, but
Can I,
The
oh, go ahead.
the insulation up there in the ceiling, one of the things he said was his electrical bill was higher at a smaller facility than it was in Portland, which was 6,500 square
Yeah,
feet.
versus
Yeah,
four
And this is
thousand.
4,000 square
4,000
feet.
square feet.
And it's because the insulation's all falling down and it's not insulating anything.
And
up
this is
there
the
in
existing-
crawl space, we've already seen, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that needs to be done is renovation.
So, Miss-
Once
Miss-
that becomes a reality, then you're gonna see a lot more efficiency in the building.
So, Mr. Long, 100,000 was originally minus the 44.
46, whatever, so we could just pull that.
You'll have 54,000. I mean, and this is just, I'm putting this out there, as opposed to, and I understand diligence in what we're trying to do, but I feel like this motion actually moves us a step forward, because it makes a decision. And that decision is we're not building a new health department, and that leaves 54,
We'll determine.
did some amount on or about
Whatever's
$54,000.
unspent.
Could we just say, hey, you got $54,000 to figure out how to renovate this building? I mean, if it's gonna be more, we can talk about that later, but.
Right.
I mean, doesn't this kind of move the ball forward here? I'd be interested in, oh, go ahead.
What's
Got one
the,
queue.
on 5A, it says pending Gen Ops committee decision. Does that happen?
No, that's what I'm talking about.
So the way I read this is if it hasn't happened in Gen Ops, then we shouldn't consider it yet.
Yeah, that was basically the point I was making. I wanted to reiterate that.
Well, so then you'd be against, then, I guess, the motion by Mr. Mansfield.
Well, I see them as two separate issues. I mean,
My motion is to reconsider the building of a new construction and and basically put any allocation or plans towards rehabbing the existing facility,
okay, well,
which it is harmonious with what Gen Ops is looking at as far as
right.
that objective in mind.
That is our preference, is to try to revitalize that building. And I don't think there's gonna be a problem with that.
And that's great, but I think Mr. Becker's, was there a decision and a vote on that in
General Ops.
Gen Ops?
No, because we haven't gotten all the documentation from Hal Hendricks, and we haven't done the tour of the buildings. So that's why I'm saying we're a ways down the road before we can even take it here.
You're talking about the other buildings, not the Hendersonville
I'm,
building. You're talking about.
I'm talking about all three buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah, all three buildings.
So items 1, 2, and 3 have yet to be decided in Gen Ops.
Yeah,
Do we need to defer all of those for
Yeah.
another month?
yeah, at least. I mean, I'm waiting on Hal Hendricks to get me the documentation so that, because I want the documentation before we do the tour. I think it'll be most beneficial to the committee members to know what we're dealing with financially before we go to the buildings.
So this sounds like, from what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like these are two separate things, because I understand that your thought here is to defer this we'll keep this in old business for another month.
Mhm.
Whereas Mr. Mansfield appears to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mansfield, but we're making a decision on not moving forward with the health department in New Shackle Island.
That was my motion.
Yeah, so those are two, I mean, I just want to be clear here, that's a separate thing.
Yeah, and I was
So-
trying to clarify where general ops is
Okay.
with the thing.
So, we have a motion on the floor. Go ahead.
Question.
No, I was just agreeing with what you're saying. I mean, I think last month, I know last month we sent this back to Gen Ops. That hasn't happened yet, so I know we can have a new resolution or whatever motion tonight, but what we decided last month hasn't happened yet, so
Right.
we can vote on Mr. Mansfield's motion.
Do we want to vote, or do you just want to amend it to move all this, group and move
Well, I can
all this?
withdraw my motion, if
Okay.
that's, I mean,
Yeah.
if you would,
That works, too.
I would defer to the General Ops Chairman if you would like me to withdraw my motion for running.
Well, I think because we haven't done a full
Okay.
investigation, I would.
I'll draw my motion
Got
to
it.
the seconder.
So then I
That's
would,
fine.
that would.
I'll make a motion to send item A, 1, 2, and 3 back to, or continue to keep it on old business.
Second motion.
Any more discussion?
No action, just leaves it on old business.
Leaves
You
it
don't
on-
actually
Oh,
have
that's
to
right, I
vote.
guess we don't have.
You just not to vote, it'll go
Even
by.
better.
Yeah.
Let's
All
keep
right.
marching.
B.
Great. Purchase of the AEDs.
Need to take a vote.
You don't have to.
We don't have to in this stage. So, I guess I'd interrupt, or entertain a motion here. This is second reading.
Second.
Okay? And so what this is for is, go ahead, Mr. Mansfield.
Well, I guess want to clarify, because there was, Commissioner Becker made a motion to go ahead and do the 55, and we have a quote in there, and then we got another quote for the 100, which was my original, so I guess I would want to know what we're moving forward with, because there's several quotes inside of this.
So, I understood when we did it previously, that we moved ahead with the 55.
correct. But
So
they
this
gave
is the
us a quote.
second reading for the 55.
Okay, I just wanted
Yeah.
to clarify that for the record.
Does that make sense to you? That's what we're all tracking? All right,
Yes.
so,
For the police cars.
yeah, that's right, for the
Totally agree.
roads, cars on the road.
Right.
Okay. Mr. Long, we talked about this before. Any thoughts on where this funding is gonna come
It
from?
could come from local capital, or you could wait and see how you reallocate some of your ARPA funds if you wanna
Which I think is a good idea.
put it back here and just wait and see what you have
But-
from the buildings and stuff, cause you got a little time.
So, but the question on that is, were you gonna ask a question, were you and Q? Will that have to delay us for, putting a bid?
No, we did, these right here
Oh, yeah, that's right.
was
we're
a sole
sole sourcing.
provider because
That's right.
the EMS is using the pads and it prevents us from having to buy the pads, and also Zoll, when they told us if you switch the pads, it will stop the defibrillation basically.
So their bid is good through December 31st.
Got it. So,
Give you some time to look, or.
I like the idea of so we have the motion up, I like the idea here of holding off, because I know there's a lot of discussion right now that we've got about $1.5 million worth of ARPA funds that we're looking at. I think we're gonna hold off on that later, which, depending, might be useful, as opposed to pulling that from.
I'd be in favor of using ARPA.
Okay. Well, we would just,
Are you-
we're not making a motion
I
now.
can bring the ARPA report
We just
back
leave it
to
to
you
old
next
business.
month.
Were we gonna get a revised price on 55 or a scale?
No, we do, we already have a
Yeah.
55 quote and there's a 100 quote.
Yeah.
And they said it's the same price if you go to 115, so.
So
we
there's
can
no-
keep scaling up.
Okay, so yes, so it's not, if there's no discount at that point.
Okay.
The adjusted price for the actual equipment's the same.
Okay, no matter if we get
So
55 or
if we leave this for one more month, we don't have to make a motion or anything.
I like
Honestly,
that.
is,
I don't wanna wait. Why don't we just go and use ARPA funds?
Good to December 31st.
Well, I mean, I guess we could we just
I
use
make a
ARPA
motion to
funds?
approve this with ARPA.
We could, but, or I could bring you back, we could pull it from somewhere, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
I would like to see it move forward, I mean, I've been.
So we have a
I
motion?
second your
Got a
motion.
second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
We're set for the, for
Any
55.
Yes.
disapprove?
That was a motion for the 55.
All right, got it.
55 from ARPA.
Motion carries. 55 from ARPA. Okay, so this was, the next one on old business was the uncollected material receivables. Mr. Mayor, I think we had a pretty lengthy discussion last time that there is considerable amount of receivables that we have not received. And we were going down a list of things that we could do, and we thought it would be best for you to make some phone calls first.
Yeah, and what, I've got a presentation, and unfortunately I had technical difficulties getting it up there, so, we do one of two things. Y'all go through the rest of it and I'll print everything, or, we can move this next month, cause it's not going anywhere. So the cities aren't amenable.
So they're gonna, what's the bottom line
Well-
up front on this?
As far as price,
Or as far as like what the cities
Well-
are gonna,
you know, to be honest with you, I think you're gonna have to involve the law director.
okay.
Unless you want to enter into negotiations with the city. The law is very clear that you do have the authority to enter into a negotiation with cities, and y'all work out an amount.
It's basically a mediation.
Yeah, got it.
And, You know, basically the law states that in the absence of any agreement between the county and the cities, thereof imposing property tax, local cost of reappraisal property within the city shall be paid 1/2 by the county, 1/2 by the city. So it's not may, it's shall.
So if nothing's gonna happen over the next, if we're not gonna be able to, is there any material benefit to starting any kind of mediation now? Is it gonna help us?
I don't think so.
We gotta, okay,
Just leave it on hold.
then let's just leave it. But we, back to this 2.6 million, it's a lot of money we're leaving on the table. And I get it,
Maryland,
cities are.
in May, letters are gonna go out for the next year.
Yep. And look, cities are out advocating for their interests, we gotta advocate for ours, there's no evil here,
It's
but.
not the city's interest, they're just failing to do their obligation.
Well,
That's just
you're gonna
their
fight,
business.
man, it is what it is, but we gotta fight for us too, right?
Yeah, we do. That's what
what we gotta
We're
do.
gonna.
So,
Next time.
we'll leave this on old business.
Okay.
Discussion of the budget calendar for 2024 budget preparation, Mr. Long.
Is this got to be done before January 1st so we can put it on old business? Or if you've had several months to look at it, if you're happy with the layout,
Yeah.
because it will bring you a budget by June 30th, then
I like it. This is on page 21.
Do we need a motion for this?
it says that the finance director and the committee will develop a calendar each year, so I would make a motion to that.
I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, any discussion here? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. There you go, Mr. Long.
So on page 25 is the carryover list. And several things have transpired when everybody gets there. I'll kind of
Yeah,
slow down.
discussion.
I'll go through it slowly.
Yeah.
Several of these items have been semi-handled. Okay, the first ones are 71,844 on the right, if you look on the second set of numbers to the right.
Okay.
And then you go on down below the first subtotal, that's 225,328.04. That is for the update on the disaster recovery, and it had the first reading last month. That's the one you really need a second reading to send it on to commission. And that's been in the works. It's to bring us to where we have a hot site versus however long it takes to come up with it. And the 225,328.04 came from COVID funds.
We pressed this one pretty hard. And we got good answers last time. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Motion. What, like on item 1?
We are, but only on parts of it. We're on, this motion would be specific for the IT fund, so it's the 71,844 and the 225,328.
Yeah, that's,
It's the IT only.
yeah, that's what you want.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Yes,
Did we get a
number one.
second on that? You have a second? Okay, any discussion here? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any disapprove? All right, motion carries. Go
The
ahead.
next one, which is easy to clear, has been sent back to general office. It's the $450,000 for the archives roof, and they're looking at the roofs right now, so that really probably just needs to let it go back to old
Yep.
business. The other's the $1.5 million for the economic development, and my understanding that's going to be addressed in December.
Yep.
So that only leaves you back to three items, which is the 204, 645, 56, which is the second number on the right going downward. And that is actually, in Gen Ops, that's the discussion, that's the hazard mitigation. So it probably just needs to go back onto old business until that's resolved. The next one is, there's $847,189 worth of projects, and Ms. Norfleet prepared a list, and I will go through it with you. Right now, it should have been passed out as it was a list that she had, or maybe Miss used to have it.
Has everybody got this list? This is an important list here.
This is going back to the capital projects,
Yeah.
2018.
2016 and 18, 19 years. And really, there's a couple of pieces, and I'll go through some of the larger ones. Now, she passed out this list, and I can go through a few of the items. If you go through, the first one is there was a 2016 walkthrough report, and it's not been provided, so, but if you go through, there's it says sidewalk extension in front of Station Camp High School along Bison Trail. The estimated cost of that was $300,000. Then there's an Ucana Park and Ride, which has an estimated cost of $200,000.
So these are effort, greenway effort type things, right?
Yes.
No. So you said that the Bison Trail was how much?
No, that's in front, that's a sidewalk for the students in front of it. That's not
So-
anything to do with the Greenway.
I get it. We get, so it's not for the greenway, but it's just the sidewalk then, and it's just in front of
Sidewalk.
school. So 300,000, and then the O'Connor Park and Ride, is that, what is that?
You know, right now, they have a gravel parking lot out there. They have a sign that says Park and Ride.
Is it
Other
getting
than
used?
that, I don't know.
That's what it's for.
I
Mine.
don't
What
know.
was the
I
cost
think,
of that?
I think
200,000.
Commissioner Holmes
200,000 was the
would know
estimated
more
cost.
So,
about
We're
that.
talking about just paving the parking lot?
It was called a Park and Ride project, and that would be, she provided it to me earlier today. But,
So I would
We need to know more about
entertain a
that.
motion here to discuss just these two, because that's $500,000. I think it's worth having a discussion.
Where is this coming from our capital projects?
that's the request for the $847,184.59.
It's a piece of that. It's
It's part
two-thirds
of
of
it.
that.
And I was gonna go through the rest of the pieces, because some of them are,
Why?
We're segregating out, like, we're digging in and segregating out all that stuff.
So this is 300, how much did you say total?
500,000.
I know, 500,000 for the side.
No, it's 300,000 for the sidewalk, 200,000 for the
Park and Ride.
park and ride.
So this is in front of a school?
No.
The sidewalk is.
the sidewalk
The
is.
Station Camp High School along Bison
Yeah,
Trail. Where is that geographically? Is it on the school campus?
Yeah, Bison Trail's the name of the street, I think.
I guess, why is it the school board paying for this?
Good question.
Good question.
I mean, we gave them $15 million in capital budget.
Well, we do have I
It's
don't
not our
know.
right of way.
It's, okay, it's
I'll
not,
double check, but I don't think it's our right of way. It's not the school board's right of way.
so it's not the right way. That's the, so, but let's just, to get this, you to be proper here, so Mr. Becker doesn't kick me. Can I get a motion here to discuss this? Just a
So
motion for
moved.
discussion.
Second.
All right, good. So here's my take on it. I'll open this up. Again, this is just dollars and cents to me. I'm going back once again to 2.6 million is our projected margin for next year. That's a 25% increase in that margin if we kill these two things. It's just dollars and cents. I like sidewalks and I like paved stuff too. But we also have core stuff that we gotta take care of, and I don't think we're gonna keep our way out of this by, we're not gonna find some magic pot of $2 million. We're gonna do it by 100,000 here and 100,000 there. And this is 500,000. That's my take on it. That's Matt's opinion. Mr. Rogers?
If I may, how long has this money been out there?
It was a project list from 2019.
I think there's an answer.
It's been worked on, slowly worked through.
It's been out there for 4 years and with no action on this.
Well, they've been working on some as they go down the list, but this one's haven't got to them yet.
I mean, we're a much different economic place in 2019 where we are now.
Any,
Mayor, are you suggesting we, like, remove it or just don't act on
I'm suggesting we remove it. Or, I mean, if we don't act, the thing is, we don't act on it, keeps on there. I suggest we remove it.
So-
We gotta make decisions on some of this stuff. I suggest we remove it.
it? But is it, I guess my question, is it come forward where they're ready to work on it and now we gotta vote yes or no?
No.
These are just carryover projects.
Carryover projects.
Are we talking about sidewalk all along this road here? Who's gonna use it?
Well, that was gonna be my question, was what are we providing sidewalk poles. I mean,
Well,
I know to walk on, but I mean.
It's way far away from any of the school buildings. I can't imagine any, it just seems to me like it's throwing money away. You see what I'm saying?
All
It's-
right, I'll make a motion to remove this and the parking ride.
Second.
Okay.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor of removing items 2 and 3, the sidewalk and the park and ride, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Long?
The next one's a group of things such as HVAC improvements for older heating air units or heating, and UPAG repairs at Gallatin Hendersonville Library. Those would probably be best, one, just to find out when they need to be repaired and come up with dollar values for an appropriation and or send them to general ops, it's according to which way you want to handle them. It could go to gen ops or it could be handled with an
That could be
appropriation.
something we just get a price on.
Get a
Well,
price,
yeah.
bid on.
Now, this one here on the Hendersonville Health Department,
Yeah.
those are trained, that been there for a long time. Those are compressors that
Or they need
last
to be upgraded.
forever. And, again, this is just a situation where they need to do the insulation of the crawl space. I don't think that these things, need to be, I mean, this one right here doesn't need to be replaced, that's for sure.
Well,
I think the discussion today was that these don't need to be replaced. Do you want to look at them now before they become an emergency? Or when they tear up, they become an emergency purchase? And historically, the feeling is if we do it as an emergency purchase, it costs us more because it's an emergency purchase. So it's kind of, do you want to really replace it before it tears up?
This is I was just gonna say, when we're getting into this level of detail, I'm not sure this is the body for it. That's what general ops is
It's
for.
gen ops or
Yeah.
the department one. That's what I'm saying. It really needs to.
Or
make that
that's
budget.
right, or the department.
Just like the repairs to the libraries, that needs to be looked at.
Can I make a motion that we send this back to general ops?
You can always make, we have one in a second. Any discussion on that?
Is that for the entire list or just for?
Can you pull away from the Hendersonville
whole
library?
list.
I got one
No,
question.
the air conditioning
Just the air-
units.
And
I
how
got
about the
one.
repairs to the
I'll
libraries?
make a
too?
motion to send the whole thing back to general.
Send it all back.
Because we don't,
Yeah, let's,
we're gonna have that same discussion.
Well,
every single-
Can we talk about three
there's
funding items?
there's a
on that?
couple of them though that are in,
They probably do need to be handled tonight. Also.
can you pull out the ones that need to be handled
Okay,
right
there's
now?
a $50,000 budgeted for floor projects. There was a 2016 listing that had that also, and there's a transfer to move 50,000 because you guys approved the project and it started. We really, to continue those other projects, we need to appropriate the 50,000 back into 2016 projects. Is one of the things. And then if you go to the last page,
No, let's do, I make a motion to carry on that $50,000.
Second.
Okay.
Any discussion?
That's for carpet.
that was the carpet
That's the
here,
carpet.
that we took
It's
it out of
under-
another pot.
it's being done
It was
now.
allowed,
Yeah.
but we really needed to finish those.
Yeah,
other
we
ones.
need
We're
to.
currently
Any
bouncing
discussion?
things.
All right, we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And then on the last page, there's two items. There's $130,000 needed for capital projects carryover, and that is what it's for is ADA compliance and repair of the existing elevator in the jail. There's two issues. One, it's not ADA compliance, and number two, it's a proprietary elevator. Every time we repair it, the cost is very expensive because it's proprietary. So the $130,000 was just to get it ADA compliant and get the proprietary one out. What I would recommend on this one is you actually send it back to finance and tell us just to bid that, and we see where it comes back, and then send the bids to general ops.
I make that motion.
You'll get it all out of here and back.
Any discussion? All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And then the last item here, there is for the sealing and striping of this parking lot. We did a carryover, but there's two issues. There was a $9,500 PO to Rogers Group we don't need because it didn't work out. But when we got back for the actual quote, and we know the bid's probably gonna be that amount or close, we're about $4,353 short. So what we're asking for is $4,353 to be carried over and to reappropriate the $9,500 from the canceled PO for
Together.
striping and the.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? And this is for, really specifically, it's for the 4353, the last page, and the 9,500
From the
together.
PO, yes.
From the PO together. All right. Motion and a second. Any discussion? No? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And the last one I
Motion
want to
carries.
discuss is the cleanup. If you go to the front page on the left, there's 11,242.03 for building improvements at EMS station number 13. That's completed, so I'm just asking the commission to combine that in with one of the earlier resolutions and just remove that appropriation. Any of them's fine.
Where is this at?
Yeah,
It's on the very first page, if you go to the first column of numbers. I'm sorry, on the very first page, the one in your agenda packet. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I have mine all cooked together, the one in your agenda.
okay, got it.
I
The
have it
11,
together, so I said first
the
page.
11,242?
Yes, I'm just asking to remove that appropriation just for a cleanup because it's no longer needed.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I make a motion, move the rest back to general office.
I have one discussion. Do we need to send all of that to Gen Ops? I mean, is there anything here we can just, can the county mayor's office come back with some numbers? Or can you, is that possible to do it?
It's
Send it over to Gen
always
Ops? Motion's on the floor, but the
Generally,
Gen Ops stuff is just gonna keep getting bigger.
what we've done internally is we just want a concept for an appropriation before we bid items because you can run down to a lot of costs.
Okay.
But I would say Ms. Norfleet or Mr. Isabel's office could get quotes that would give you a good idea when we
Alright.
can move forward with those.
So, but the motion would still be the same. This is just
Would have
gonna
to
be,
be.
all those quotes would be, Mr. Mayor, I think, routed through Gen Ops then. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second for that? All right, so motion is to move everything else to, that we discussed here to Gen Ops. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All righty. So I think, I'm lost.
H is this the next item for consideration?
Say that again?
H would be your next item for consideration because
Well, we struck F.
and G is going, just needs to be
That's
like our
right.
business. And then
Go
H,
ahead.
H needs a second reading. The amount's now $11,097. That's because we added in the amount for the assessor's bond. That made the difference.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any approve, or any disapprove? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, that carries us through old business. Record time for us, I think, actually.
Still an hour.
Still trying. Going on to new business. Okay,
Should just be page 64 through 77 is all that remains.
yeah, so we've struck A1, so that we have the budget amendments
3 and 4.
3 and 4. And these are the ones,
Group approved.
group and approved, well, yeah, so 3 and 4. And those are budget, well, it's just A2. It's just one, but it's 2 amendments within it.
Yeah, it's two
All right, can we get a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on these? We had a lot of discussion in education.
I think we
All
wore
right,
it out.
we wore it out. Okay. All in favor to approve?
Wait. This is the one that includes monitoring?
No.
No, this is
No,
a
it does
different
not.
one.
That's
Okay.
two.
No,
Okay,
that's 2, which has been asked to be
That was
removed.
under old business.
That's right. Any other, good point of clarification, though. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. The next one's just information only. Do we need to do anything with that?
That's probably what you did discuss. I would recommend, since it goes to,
Consent agenda.
yeah, I
Yeah.
would say since education considers it, you may want to just tell us not to put it on your agenda in the future since it's information only. 'Cause it
Well,
goes to
no,
education, then
well,
everything.
we talked about that, but we would like the public to see what
Okay.
that's what's being spent.
So there's,
Well, so it went to education, I'd send on the budget just directly to the
Yeah,
commission.
just keep, yeah.
so there's no motion to do anything with this then? Nothing needed? All right.
We're on item 3, that's A3, is that what you're?
Yeah, we're on item A3. Okay, so now we're on to appropriations. So we don't need to do anything with A3. Okay.
Because the education said it on the commission already.
So B1 is general sessions to $75,000 juvenile mental health court pilot grant. So
They are here to discuss it, I think.
I'll entertain a motion to discuss this. Second? Well, I'll make the motion.
Yeah. Second.
Second, all right. So the tape floor is open. Mr. Long, I'm just gonna make a couple notes here because you and I discussed this before. $75,000 is, where's the grant coming from? Is it state grant?
State grant.
State grant. So
No,
that,
Department of Mental Health.
so
Couldn't
the,
stay here.
I'll just make my only concern here, and I'm gonna have this every time there's grant money or one-time money. I understand this is gonna be going towards salary. Is this for a new employee?
Oh,
So, no, it's just kind of a comment. This was, I think, similar to what I was mentioning before. I know it's grant money, but I think I'd like to understand like how long this is gonna be going, what are the understandings of the individual who would be hired for this? Like, I don't want us to get into a position where we've got somebody that we have grant money, and then that grant money runs out, and we've been relying on somebody for operations, that then we have to make a hard decision on.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I mean, candidly, this is money appropriated from the state of Tennessee to hire a director for the juvenile mental health. The State Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services is treating these juvenile courts, mental health court, as a pilot program for the state of Tennessee. We are the only game in town that's doing this. No other county across the state has a juvenile mental health court. The adult system has a mental health court, but no other juvenile court exists that has this. We have an opportunity to do something exceptionally important. I understand the fiscal ramifications here, and I mean, ultimately down the road, I would say if we're successful, we will be coming back and saying this is something that we as the county should be looking at. But right now, Governor Lee appropriated money. We have been granted this money. We anticipate that there's going to be more grant money here in the future to address even more of a need that we're seeing among juvenile offenders who are having systemic, generational mental health issues. This is going to be able to assist these kids and their families to hopefully keep them out of the adult court system, to keep them, as my discussions with Judge Blanton, Judge McCormick, and late Judge Carter, is to try to keep them out of the adult system, to try to keep them out of the custody of the Department of Children's Services, to be able to address things here locally in their home. And we need the coordinator position to get us to that level. We've been in operation consistently now for a couple of years. I mean, COVID slowed us down, but we got back going again, and this is entirely what we've done so far with no resources. We've had people in my office volunteer to help. We've been very successful in getting community members to volunteer for our board of directors to help move this case along. We've had attorneys volunteer to help, but we're at the point now to be able to serve more kids and more families and do what we think needs to be done. We've got to have somebody help manage this beyond just simply the probation officer who we have assigned to do this among his other supervisory duties over the probation department. This gives us an opportunity to work classes at our office to help the families out at our office while they're still receiving treatment and therapy through the community. This gives us an opportunity to manage this case longer and better through the juvenile mental health court.
I make the motion approved.
Second motion.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Judge,
Yes.
this could be just the tip of the iceberg, more or less, I guess. What if this person, what if they were to adjudicate a child to see someone professional, say a psychologist or even
That's
a
actually-
psychiatrist? Is that
That is outside of
this?
this. Part of the mental health court process is that this is a child and family who are already receiving treatment. This is just sort of help manage within the program itself. But also the model that we based our program on, which was out of Denton, Texas, their coordinator, pardon me, is a clinician. And that's what we're asking to try to be able to do, is to approve funds to have a clinician at juvenile court to assist these families with assessments and moving on. Right now, our assistant court director we're the one managing all the records. I mean, they spend a lot of time managing records. I mean, lawyer. My assistant's a child development specialist. I mean, we need somebody who is able to speak the language that I don't speak.
Go ahead, I think you're.
Is this pilot program for a year?
We are of the opinion that they have no cutoff date.
Okay.
But how long, well, so how long was the $75,000 expected to?
Well, right now it's for the year because we're starting late. We've asked for the money earlier in this year, but the funds become available December the 1st. We're gonna be very candid on the front end. This is what we have right now, and we're hoping to get more grant money. We're encouraging the folks who are involved in this. We're continuing to look, and we're encouraging them. It is a eat what you kill world.
Can I just ask Judge a question?
Sure.
Forgive me if I missed something here. Do you know the success rate? I mean, what you're saying, this is intended to keep children from going to the adult system, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Out of custody of the state of Tennessee.
So the goal here is to kind of, I don't want to use it, forgive me from using the wrong word, to rehabilitate them before
Yes.
they get to be an adult, and, you know, to prevent all that. Do they provide you any data, like, you know, to say what the success rate might be, you know, in these other programs, or?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say because we're dealing with issues of.
Yeah, and I'm not holding you to
No,
anything specific.
I mean, we have had a wildly successful candidate, and we had one that sadly, about 9 months in, I mean, the behavior never changed, the situation never changed, and we gave multiple opportunities for sanctions before we finally, the petition, she picked up new charges, the petition had to be filed, and we had to wind up placing her in custody. We have 2 kids waiting to go right now who will start later this month, and we have 2 kids in the pipeline right now who are candidates to get in, and I believe Commissioner, you served one of those in court the other day.
Well, and, you know, and that's the concern of mine is, you know, these kids, correct me if I'm wrong, are starving for this kind of help. You know, this mental health is a real concern in this country.
Yeah.
You know.
2 questions.
Yes, sir.
Is there
Go
a
ahead.
renewal, first of all, that you can apply for this grant each year?
I believe so,
Okay.
yes.
Second, what is the recidivism rate that Denton, Texas had with their program?
I don't really know the answer to that question. They've been operating now for a number of years, and the reason why we chose Denton, Texas was because their model lined up with the philosophical model that we wanted to do.
Mrs. Janelle?
I do mental health. That's my job every day. And I want to reiterate what he's saying. We have children that are in the school system that, because of the failure of the family unit and the constant things that they are exposed to, are having behavioral problems. They don't know how to handle it. He's right.
Yeah.
They have to have a clinician. I diagnose people all the time with mental health issues, all the time. But you have to be a professional to know how to do that. Now, I know that they are already in a system working with people that are professionally able to do that. But you can't ask the judge and his assistant to be accountable for that, because he's not a psychiatrist, he's not a psychologist. But you need a clinician to coordinate that. And so when you have a situation where you have children in our county, which we do, we have a very bad problem in our county with our kids failing in the system and ending up in jail because they don't have the resources. Their parents are working, they're left alone. It's fractured. And they're trying to deal with these issues in the court system, and they can't, if they don't have somebody professionally in their department that can give them guidance on what they really need to be doing and working with these families, then it's not going to work. It's a cycle. I see it constantly. And it ends up when you've got older people that are getting into the system as well. I'm serious. This is a huge problem in this county, and we've got to take it very seriously. And we don't want these kids killing themselves, committing suicide, killing their parents, all these kind of things. So I understand what he's saying. This is a big deal, and I understand it's $75,000 grant money. But what's to say that they don't see an impact. We're gonna have an impact in this county, we got to, or we're gonna fail. You can build all the buildings you want, you can build all the roads you want, all the sidewalks you want, all these fancy schools. But if you don't take care of these children, you're gonna have a big problem ahead of you. Because you're gonna expect them to run this county, and they're not gonna be there for you. So I understand what he's saying, and I would hope that you will listen to him.
No, Judge, you make some very good points. I wasn't trying to put you on the spot with like, trying to get like a success rate, but I
I mean,
believe what
it's,
you're saying.
mental health is hard to gauge. I
Yeah.
can't tell you what success of mental health is, other than we've got a kid who doesn't go in front of Judge Blunt, who doesn't go in front of Judge McCormick, who we're dealing with issues that these kids that they have been shunted aside because generationally the same mental health problems were there with her parents, with their grandparents, and we're having an opportunity. And I mean, I'll be very blunt with you. I would rather come to you and say, I would like the county to fund this, but right now, we're not in a position to do that. And so the state of Tennessee has the money and they're willing to give it, and we want to take it.
Okay.
We stand a better chance of rehabilitating children than we do adults. I think this is a good move.
This to me is an investment.
It is.
It's not an expenditure.
It is, yeah.
And I get it, it's grant money, but
Well-
even if we were out $75,000.
So I'm gonna be there must always be the opposing voice here. And I'm not even saying this is my belief. Nobody is arguing that this isn't good. No one. I keep coming back to this number. And I know that this grant, the fact that it's grant money is good for a year. I understand that. But I keep coming back to this number, and I think you just said, if this wasn't there, you would advocate for this for a new position. And I understand it. It's a good thing. We have a margin of $2.6 million next year. And everybody, lots of people are going to come with things that will tell us that are good things for everybody. And that's why Mr. Schmidt's comment is a good one. It's about the proof points. I don't have anything else other to say. I just want to note that just because you question things like this doesn't make you evil. It doesn't mean that you don't want these good things for kids. It means that you're looking at the numbers and trying to understand, trying to plan ahead and make sure that you're being responsible. It's easy when there's a big pot. It's not easy when there isn't. So anyhow, I'll get off my soapbox. Sir.
Mr. Chairman, to go back to Mr. Brown's question, overseeing recovery court, which I do, and it's all grant funded for the most part. I think almost all of it is grant funded. There's money out there for grants to be renewed, and I can tell this body, if you listen to anything that Governor Lee has said in the last month, this is his one of his number one priorities that we've heard in every judicial conference that we've been in, is the money that's come. He wants to establish mental health courts in every court, every county, and he wants to fund that. And so I think, to answer your question, those grant funds will be available probably at least for the next 4 years. So.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just would be remiss if just not saying this, but it's a good opportunity because you've got the courts here that are talking about mental health. We just took a vote on the mental health funding for our schools. It's all cyclical. It all feeds together. And so I want to point that out, is that it starts at the schools. Hopefully God never ends here, but it's there. And so we just have to be cognizant of that and just be responsible for how we're doing that. And I respect the long-term, I'm right there with you. Take the short-term money for long-term obligations. I'm not a fan of, but I would like to see something like that funded long-term, because there's a need. There is such a need. It's everywhere you look and everywhere you U-turn. Thank you, Commissioner John, for what you're saying too.
Definitely.
It's really important, and I don't think a lot of people recognize that and realize it, because it's under the surface, and it's just like, it's easy to ignore and just not look at it, but it's there. And if we don't start addressing it and dealing with it as a community, as a society, it's only gonna get worse. So, thank you.
Any other comments? Any other?
I was gonna say whatever you just said.
Okay.
Summary.
I was just gonna kind of echo what you said, Commissioner Schoaf, Mr. Chairman, about, and I'm glad to hear Judge Blanton say that hopefully there's big grants for a couple of years, because we get in the concern of doing something in the middle of a budget cycle or committing ourselves to something we don't have money for, such as the ARPA funds being used against the comptroller's advice to fund salaries for EMS employees, which is a bad idea. Instead of a one-time bonus. I mean, it's the same. I understand the compassion aspect, but we also got to be careful of if a road to health paved with good intentions. So I'm fine voting on this tonight. If we're going to talk about problems in schools and problems in government, that's something that we've talked about even in our preamble. And so, you're looking back in 1947 when the kids got out of schools, that's when you started having mental health crisis. So I'm just going to be really honest with you here. So when you start removing the greatest help to mental health and people's spiritual and emotional well-being, when you remove and basically take God out of school or that kind of counseling, of spiritual counseling and helping kids in their issues, you're seeing a 80-year-old issue manifesting itself in our society. There's consequences to what the Supreme Court did, and but I'm just saying we're paying for mistakes that have been bad decisions made by our courts for 80 years, and just making that understanding, that hopefully get these kids the help they need. But I mean, it's definitely beyond just a mental and physical, as a spiritual aspect of this as well, and I see that as a problem. So I just wanted to make that point as we're talking about these things, and when the kid got out of schools and you start having a lot more problems. So.
I'm about to call a question if not, but go ahead.
And there's nothing that says that this is not like the increase it pays in my line of thinking. This is a whole new position that if we found that it was a total failure, we would end it, maybe. If the funding is not there, we have the possibility to end it. So I don't see it quite as the same thing. I understand what you're saying about a short-term increase for a long-term problem. I don't see this as that. So I would be in favor of it.
They're saying they're fairly confident with grant money in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm concerned right now is,
I'm addressing Matt and Jeremy.
And I get what everyone's saying, but I'm concerned for these kids right now that are in the place they are today, not how they got there, because that's already happened. They're in that,
I'm gonna call a question on this. I think everybody's got where they're gonna be.
Yeah.
I think we do. But I appreciate the discussion. Okay. All in favor of passing this, please say aye.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Do we have the?
If you're gonna call a question, we gotta vote to call a question.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
But if no one's in the queue, let's just vote.
Okay, yeah, let's call a question.
If there's anyone else in the queue, all right, let's just vote.
All right.
There we go. So
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes
Are
unanimously.
you waiving second readings on any unanimous calls? Because I
Yeah.
don't know if there's a time frame on this particular one. The other ones, not so much.
We
so.
can if we have a unanimous, correct? We can waive it.
You can if you say that.
If you stated the motion, so
I was the maker of the motion, so
I'll make a new
Bring it
motion.
back up then.
Ted can get to reconsider it, but I'll just make a new motion that we waive the second reading.
Second motion.
All right. Motion's made, seconded. All in favor of passing this with waiving the second reading, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
What about the AEDs?
Okay.
We can waive that.
Got it.
You can go back.
Okay, I think these next couple will be a little bit easier here.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh,
we'll
go
probably
ahead.
need to, since you brought that up, the same thing with the AEDs, to waive that. I mean, we were on the second.
We were on the second one.
Okay, we were on the
Yeah,
second.
we were already on the
I'm
second.
sorry, I
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Yep.
Second.
Ready to go?
Yeah.
So, on the sheriff's office, $30,000 enforcement of Tennessee DUI laws grant, and reducing the mental health transport grant, approved the budget. This is all grant money.
And it's overtime, it's not a position, so.
Motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Wait a second.
All in favor with,
Stipulate if it.
with waiving the second?
Yes, with the waiver.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Waive second reading.
The item B is actually to reduce the mental health grant to the actual amount. The amount that was in the budget was an estimate. And then also item 3 is the same thing for the DGA grant.
I'll make a motion for 2B.
Second. And if unanimous,
Remind me what requires a second reading now, dear?
If it's non-pass through, I forgot about that.
oh yeah, that's right. So we didn't need that
Right.
anyway. Okay.
So just like these two are pass through.
It's getting late.
Good. Yeah.
So, motion.
Second for 2B. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Passed unanimously. Moving to B3. Go ahead, Mr. Long.
Same thing, it's the direct grant access, and it's a
Motion.
reduction.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Item 4, when I went and talked to the codes department today, that actually should have been a deposit anyway, so we do not need the appropriation for the refund. We are going to post it back against revenue, so we can just ignore that one.
Can I get a motion?
What do you-
B4.
Just let it die.
Oh, that's, okay, that's fine.
You can just die.
Go ahead, B5.
Development service appropriated money. There was a canceled PO for 200, it's on page
Yeah.
227, and then there's an additional cost, and we actually have the planner here too.
So I'd entertain a motion for discussion on this one, because this is gonna take some discussion, unfortunately.
So moved.
Second. All righty. So, Mr. Long, my understanding on this is that this commits us to a one-time purchase of software, and it also commits us to a $43,000 recurring purchase, a recurring license fee.
That's correct. The original project started a couple years back, and there was $240,054 to set up. I believe it was Intergov, and this one came in at the all in 142 plus 42,000 software support. But the reason it's coming back up is anytime a PO, for instance, we had a PO out for Intergov, it was determined not to use Intergov, so we canceled the PO. If we canceled the PO, there was no longer reliability, so there's not a carryover budget. So it's back here for the committee to determine at this point if they want to appropriate and continue on with the project. But we actually do have the county planner here, and he can kind of tell you about the program if you want to hear its functionalities and its purpose.
I do.
So, I'm Josh Suttoth, I'm Director of Development Services for the county. Obviously, the planning and codes, primarily covers engineering. Marshall Wright is the building codes director, who's here earlier, he had to leave. Right now, where our departments are as far as how we do about 3,000 permits a year, give or take, between our two departments that come through the county. That's anything you can imagine, from building code stuff to somebody gonna move some dirt around, so they have to get what's called a land disturbance permit, just all kinds of things. But they're all paper-based. They're all paper-based, and by and large, they're all, you come into the office, you turn in your paperwork, you write on it with a pen most of the time, and you pay with with cash or check. We cannot take credit cards at all, or debit cards here at Sumner County, either office. And so what the purpose, overarching purpose of this program is to essentially create a portal where residents, builders, developers, whoever they are, can come and get their permits without having to interact with us personally as much, really, and to be able to pay online, receive automated messages if the permit is, if a new inspection has been scheduled or has been approved or whatever. And so it's something that basically everybody else does now, frankly. Hendersonville, Gallatin, White House, Goodlettsville, Portland, Rutherford County, Williamson County, they all do something similar to this. There's a cajillion companies out there that do this kind of thing. And the big 500-pound gorilla in the room in that space is Intergov. And that's who we entered into a contract with initially, or who we're going to enter into a contract with. created the PO to do that with them. As we kind of got deeper and deeper into it with them, they kept telling us about add-ons that we didn't know that we needed. They had to have this, and eventually it broke the budget. And so we had to go back and we sent them an email to say, hey guys, we can't do this. We're gonna have to cancel this relationship with you all. And that sent us back to the drawing board. So we went back and over the course of several months interviewed about 5 or 6, I forget the exact number of other firms, because there's tons of companies that do this kind of thing. Interviewed all those folks, went through all that. Then we did a second round of interviews. It was a panel consisting of the IT department, the building codes department, and the development services department, which is my department. We ended up settling on a company called GovBuilt, which is the proposal that's there before you guys. There's a pricing sheet with the services and everything that's involved with this. First year implementation would be $142,000 with a $42,000 first year cost. There's a second year price. I don't know what sheet y'all have. You have the right one. Yeah, that's the right one. So second year, there'd be $43,000, which gives you an idea of what the recurring cost is going to be. There will be an ongoing cost associated with this service, and that's what it is really, is a service that's provided in the community. Now, all this being said, there's nothing about all this stuff that's easy, and that's why it's taken several years to get it rolled out, and it can take much longer to implement sometimes. And I'll give you an example. Gallatin and Hendersonville both use Intergov. I'm not talking bad about Intergov. They're a fine company. Like I said, they're the biggest company in that space. But the city of Hendersonville, as I talked to them today, they rolled theirs out 6 years ago, and they still have no credit card functionality at this time.
And who was that with?
The city of Intergov,
That was with
the company
Intergov.
we were initially going to do business with.
So they paid for something, and
paid
they've been
for it
messing with it for 6 years.
For 6 years, yes, sir, that's right. And so I say that to illustrate the fact that these rollouts can be difficult. You've got to train this. You've got to, the permits keep coming. Y'all know how it is in
So
Middle Tennessee. The stuff keeps coming at you, and you're having to change the wheels on the train as it's going down the track. Essentially, is what you got to do. So getting it implemented is a challenge. I'm putting that out there so everybody's aware of that if we move forward with this. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
So, I guess I have a question. So I do software implementations as it would, and when we're doing implementations, we give guarantees that if we don't get things done in a certain amount of time, we give the money back. Did your office try to get a guarantee from this organization so that, like, if it's not done in 6 months, or if we're,
There's wording in there, yes, sir, and I'd have to get into the contract to look at, but there's some wording in there to the effect that basically we don't go to the next step of the implementation process until we say, we have to agree that it's good.
but we're paying them already though, right? We're not clawing any money back from them.
I don't know, I'd have to get in there and see if there's anything. I don't want to say for sure that there's anything in there.
I mean, I just certainly wouldn't want to get in a situation where we dumped $184,000 really for the first year, almost $200,000, and then 3 years later we're doing, that's basically an FTE. If we're in here, I'm just beating people up about an FTE that was going to get paid for by the state, and this is an FTE right here. This is no. I understand why you need this. I get it.
Well, and what I'm driving at is that it's something everybody else uses. We have a paper-based system, and I think it works fine, frankly. It does. But this is the 21st century that we live in, and people get very mad at us when we can't take credit cards and that kind of thing. That they get very frustrated with us, that they have to come here in person and that kind of stuff.
Is there a way to take a credit card without this, though? I mean, a lot of businesses, small businesses take a
There
credit.
are, but not to do it online. So we can have credit card readers at the office, but to have it so that you can pay online is a different thing.
Go ahead. I think we got a queue here. Go ahead, Mr.
One of the things I noticed here, it says on the data import, it says no data migration included. Does that mean it's not gonna upload your present files into the system?
That's essentially right. So because that's a big cost. That's what not only is it a big cost, it's a big lift for the staff. I mean, we're at capacity all the time, right? We don't, Sumner County, no matter what you might hear, is one of the most understaffed places in the state for the amount of development and growth that we have going on. And so that's, I said, getting all that data together, it would take a very, very long time.
So you're talking about this is gonna be personal input from the office.
That's what they would, that's what, if they, the data import involves us going back through all the old records and getting them all the old files. And so essentially the way we've kind of asked to set this up is on day one, the system rolls out, we kind of close out the stuff that's kind of in the process already. We're not gonna have somebody come in and import all this data for ongoing applications and that kind of thing. And so we would just close out old files as they kind of
And
expire.
then you're just gonna have to go back into the paper files if they want something.
Right, if there's new stuff that comes in though, it would come through the portal. Right. Yes, sir.
So Mr. Long, I think you were up next.
Well, we could set him up to take them in office, but the thing, what he's mentioning is to do an online portal and the notifications, that's something that he will need the software. Or if you want to do online payments with the internet side.
I got some thoughts on that, but I'm not, I'll go ahead.
So, you know, we're talking about recurring costs for a problem that, I'm gonna be honest with you, I have no sympathy for those who are complaining about it. We were talking about overdevelopment of our county, which has been an exacerbated problem over the past years. And the cities, I mean, Mo Taylor stood up last year in the commission, you know, and said Gallatin is killing us. And it's a true statement. They've got over 11,000 new residential units on the books, either already approved or in construction or yet to be built. 11,000. So I'm sorry, but I don't have sympathy for the cities who keep rezoning everything and cramming high density down our throats and causing massive property tax increases to pay for schools. And then we're trying to create I guess, you know, pacify the people who are causing the problem. So I'm against this, and I'm not going to vote for this proposal. You know, part of Mr. Sutt's email had a PowerPoint presentation, next steps, 1, 2, and 3, and number 2 is terminate the project. And I'm going to move to terminate the project.
Second.
All righty. We have a motion, a second. Mr. Becker, were you the second there?
Yeah, I was second.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? I have one note, and then my note is just this. Look, I for what it's worth, I want people to be able to pay online. That doesn't seem hard, or it doesn't seem like it seems like something we ought to do, but it doesn't. I know it can, that portion of it can be done for less than $142,000. It won't have all the other items. I mean, there's a million. I've personally made websites that'll do that. So, anyway, that's my last comment. But the motion then on the table is, oh, go ahead.
You know, I had to pull one permit with the city of Gallatin, and I was so frustrated I wanted to pull my hair out because I had to, you know, enter an ID and all of that stuff, and then it didn't work after that. And I'm just wondering, Josh, and I'm totally sympathetic because you're right, you are way understaffed. I'm just wondering if to implement this system isn't going to cost you more in man hours than just staying where you're at. I mean, obviously you've thought about that.
Absolutely, and that's one of the biggest concerns is the lift of getting it implemented and the
learning curve's huge.
So when I talk about permits, you guys are thinking I'm talking about big time developers, aren't you? You think I'm talking about most 80% probably of the permits that we have, they're just homeowners that come in and they're building a shed.
Yeah.
You know, they're building adding on to the garage or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Most of our stuff that comes through is just Joe Citizen.
Yeah.
And what I'm worried about with the system, and what I think merits additional study, if nothing else, is it's likely that we end up with two parallel systems where you have your builders and your pros that they do this for a living. They do it in different cities.
Yep.
They can use the system and hop right in and fine. But Joe Citizen that comes in, he doesn't even have a computer, right? He lives somewhere and maybe has internet access that's pretty good, maybe doesn't right now. And so we're going to have to set him up an account. We're going to have to get him into the portal. We're going to have to do all the stuff for him. That's always been one of my big concerns with this. Or rather than doing that, we just have a paper-based system. And so then we've got for the folks that can't use that don't have the computer literacy to use the portal. And so yeah, that's the worst case scenario really, is where you end up with, we're managing everything that happens online, and we're still doing it the old way too.
Yeah.
You gotta pick one or the
Yes.
other, essentially.
So who's driving the bus here? I mean, is it your staff that wants this, or?
Well, there's money that's out there. Now, I'll tell you, the folks, from my department, where we need it is for the surveyors and engineers that turn in plan sets for the planning commission review. Having a portal for those folks, there's a lot of accountability because you get electronic timestamps on those things.
Right.
Fees can be calculated much easier online. There's a big problem when you take an application, the staff, say I'm on vacation, the staff takes an application that's not complete. There's legal ramifications to that. With a system like that that's set up, where there's firewalls essentially set up that you have an incomplete application, it won't take it. That's a big thing for us. For the codes office, it's scheduling of all these permits. They've got one lady that sits at the front desk that schedules all these building permit inspections with all these contractors, tells the guys where they've got to be all over the county all that day. This system is really, it's a building and codes based system with an add-on for what I need it for, which is the plans review stuff. I really need that. But the codes office, they need something to help them coordinate all the schedules, the inspections, notify people that their permit's been approved, that kind of thing. Because right now, it's just a lady picking up the phone to call all these people, or sending them an email, or they're calling her. That's where we're at right now. So it works. It'll keep on working, but it's not efficient. It's not efficient, and it's always in danger of breaking down if somebody's on vacation, or somebody's out, or somebody retires, or something like that.
The paper system.
That's right. That's right.
Mr. Becker's in queue here.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
What's the reasoning that we're talking about this now versus our normal budget cycle?
Because the old, we canceled the old PO with the old vendor because the cost got too high on that one, and we couldn't work with them anymore. And so we've gone with another vendor that's much cheaper, essentially. And in order to get a new PO with that new vendor, we've had to go back through this process with you guys.
So there was funding that was originally approved for this.
Yes, sir.
There was a $240,000 PO.
Okay.
Your PO carries your budget over if you have a liability. Well, when the PO got canceled, he had no further liability, so the budget didn't really carry over, so we removed it.
Okay. And then
So now-
that got canceled here recently?
Yeah,
Yes,
this
the
last
last
couple of weeks.
couple
Yeah.
weeks. Yes, sir.
They determined this was the better of the two projects.
So this recurring expense then, of 42,000, am I reading that right?
It's 44,000 next year.
Yeah,
44.
They've got a 5%
So
clause.
44,000 so that's already in your budget? Why wouldn't that be? in the budget?
The old PO was for $240,000. The one that they originally looked at the first year of your fees was included in the implementation. They didn't charge them separate. This one charges them separate. So when you do that, you're going to have, you got a $240,000 PO. $142,292 can go toward the capital fund, just like the 240.
Mhm.
The other $42,000 is going to have to go to the general fund because it's a reoccurring, non-capitalizable cost. In the old one, they just,
So the pricing is
it was different on the old one.
the structure.
The old one was structured different because they didn't charge you for the first year for the maintenance until you were implemented.
I want to withdraw my second because I'm not fully knowledgeable about the value that this would really bring.
I think, and that's why I put, in that little thing I sent you, and I got it out to you a little late, but, that range of options, if you look at that number 3, there's things that do merit additional study. And one of them that I didn't mention there, and this is where I'm gonna wade off into David's bailiwick a little bit. Now, when I worked in West Tennessee and Shelby County, we did one of these portals with the same system. And, to pay for it, we same as you guys, we looked at ways to pay for things. We established electronic fees, something. So there's like, it was like a little add-on, like $5 add-on to every permit that you pulled, that went toward, we did it for years before we ever actually rolled out them, we actually did it. And so we built up a bunch of money to pay for the upfront costs and then to pay for the ongoing costs as well.
So
That might be something like
are you suggesting there's a way to actually turn this into a revenue stream?
Well,
Or at least enough to make it neutral?
I don't know. That's, like I said, that's where I'm waiting on into some David territory there.
We
as
can
far as
pass the
being able to do
fees
this.
for,
Yeah, let's,
we can pass the fees for the credit card fees, because there's a cost for that on its own.
So there's no second on the, so the motion is to,
Option
kill
number 2
this.
from the presentation.
Option number 2, I think there's another, maybe I'll just make it, I
I
would
would
suggest.
agree with someone else can second.
Well, I was gonna say, I would second this with an amendment, not to kill it, but just to send this to, you ask for more studies, send this to general ops.
Do you want to
they've got their plate full.
table it and me and Ben look at his fee
Yeah, let's
structure?
do that.
See if there's
Let's
a
do that.
possibility of adding fees on to cover the
So,
42,000.
my motion's still on the floor.
Yeah, it is.
At least for waiting a sec, so.
So wait a
I
second.
want to clarify something. So, we're talking about new money.
Yeah,
This is new money.
it is.
And you just gave us a speech about
I
new
know.
money. So, I'm not gonna vote for this, if you bring it back to me.
So you're the
I'm
second.
gonna second it, yeah, because there's no, what he just said about the money. It just.
You want us to explore the fees though, to see if they can cover it or not?
I mean,
I'm
mean, if
so
there's a
are you
different way
asking
to
me to defer this till next month, till we get more information?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
And, because if there's a way to structure this to pay for it,
then
it's
I'll
different.
reconstitute my motion to be, I defer this till next month.
Okay.
To explore options, but knowing that, I'm just stating, I'm not voting for new money.
No, I get it. I think what we're coming to here is, so I'll second your motion.
Okay.
But I think Mr. Sutton is getting this, that like, in order to get this somewhere, you gotta like get it so this is as close to revenue neutral as possible. All right, so motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And that was to defer to next
To
month.
defer next month.
Okay.
And you have some time to work with Mr. Lawing between now and then. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
The next, item 6 is also a canceled PO, but it's a little simpler. The county mayor's office had 3 vehicles ordered last fiscal year. The vendors came back and said they totally would not honor that. That means the PO's canceled, so there's really a couple of choices. One, the PO died, so the commission could reappropriate the 92,406, but it wouldn't be enough to buy 3 vehicles. To buy 3 vehicles now is gonna take 129,834, so it's 37,428. So really, there's a couple of choices there. But if you wanna get 3 vehicles, it's gonna take 129,834, which is eligible for capital projects.
So,
Next question.
yeah, well, let's motion for discussion. Can I get a motion for discussion?
No motion, Joe Burley.
Okay. Can I get a second? I'll have a second just for discussion. Mr. Hyde, I know you're going
I'm an ex officio member, and I hate to keep butting into this active committee, but what are these 3 vehicles for?
Let me tell you,
What
Chief.
are they?
There's one, vehicle, Mr. Hyde, but the one vehicle was at my department. We've got a 2008 Ford F-150, it's there, and it's kind of like our spare vehicle, essentially, if somebody else's vehicle's in the shop and that kind of thing, but it's well up over 100,000 miles now. It's showing its age, and then this over the last few years, we've had a lot of really bad vehicles that have been replaced in the last few years. This is really the last one in our fleet that probably needs to be looked at being replaced here at some point, pretty soon.
Okay, and that leads me to my next question. Well, what are the other 2 vehicles replaced?
They would be for codes.
Yeah, and similar
Same
situation.
situation.
Older
which is-
vehicles.
And this is what I'd like to ask, and I hate to be like, the one to be against everything, but first problem I have is a choice of vehicles. I see often county and city vehicles and federal vehicles that are rather large, better than most citizens are able to drive in many instances. Let's take a F-150. Could that not be a smaller vehicle if you're just a codes person going out checking a house?
If I was working for the city of Gallatin or Hendersonville, yes, without doubt. Almost all their construction is right there on the edge of the road. You can pull your pickup truck there onto the curb and get out. As I was saying, about 80% of our inspections are folks out, private citizens out of the county. Most of the stuff that my folks go out and check for, like stormwater type inspections and that kind of thing, involve putting it in, it could very well, you know, if it's raining and that kind of thing, involve them putting it in four-wheel drive. They have to be able to get back there to the job site. And so it's gonna be down a pretty long driveway most of the time. You know, we've had, it hasn't been very long, one of my staff members, we had to, she had a Jeep that we've since surplus, that we had to get a wrecker to get it out, because she ended up getting stuck going back in there. So we need whatever we need, whether we need a Ford F-150, I don't know, but we need something with a four-wheel drive capability for sure, in order to be able to get back to the job.
I will say, when Billy Menden was here, I had to go out with him to a couple problem codes ones that we were getting to court with. And if we would have not had a four-wheel drive truck, I don't know how we would have gotten up there. I've seen it personally where there's just almost ravines in the middle of the driveway.
Yeah, but you almost have to weigh these instances against how often do they occur, you know?
Say every day. Every day.
Every day you get stuck every day?
No, sir. No, not at all, no, but every day, they're having to go way back off the road, to an active construction site and rutted up roadway.
Well,
Yes, sir.
whatever the committee decides to do, and this was where I was getting at with the grant a few minutes ago, whatever we decide to do, we've got to keep in mind this one thing, and that is that within 2 years, we're going to be approaching a situation like I went through with the other commission in 2008, where we're having to look not to add people or to add things, but where can we cut? And thank the good Lord, we saw it approaching, and we started putting things back, and we made it through without a tax increase during that entire period of time. We are approaching that again, and I still see us spending money on occasion willy-nilly.
So, are these vehicles broken right now?
I don't know about the two codes vehicles, I'm not sure. Ours is operational right now. It would not be a crisis if this was not approved.
So, here's my, I'm gonna kind of echo what Chairman Hyde said. And this is something that myself and the late Commissioner Mo Taylor talk about often. The business of buying brand new everything all the time has got to stop. Because you blow a transmission, we'll pay $5,000 to fix the transmission. I mean, $100,000 miles on a vehicle. I got a vehicle, all my vehicles are close to 300,000 miles. I drive a 99 and I'm still driving it. Transmission goes out, I'm gonna put a new one in it. I'm not buying a new vehicle. And so this whole, it's just gross of abuse of taxpayer money, in my opinion. Of thinking everything's gotta be shiny brand new. We want functioning vehicles, yes, but it's got to be, you're spending a couple $100,000 on 3 new trucks when they're not broken. And if transmission goes out, engine goes out, you know what people do is you put a new one in for a fraction of the cost. And I'm much more in favor of that and getting a lot more longevity in life on these vehicles. You know, so I'm opposed to spend this money on new vehicles, especially if there's not even broken right now. And especially if we're not, I mean, you already got a 4x4 truck, so you're not talking about buying a new one, it's still working, and it's not in a ditch somewhere. So, if this is I don't know what item this is on the agenda, but I'm going to move that we vote no to appropriate any funds.
All righty, any further discussion?
Yeah, can I ask a question? Are all the vehicles super cabs? Do they need, I mean, do you often go out with 4 people?
Well, it's not uncommon to take multiple folks, right, and there's equipment as far as like, you know, backpacks and hard hats and paperwork that have to go out with them.
You move to approve?
Yeah, I moved to.
Yeah, you already moved to approve. So, yeah, we can just, so we'll, that's right, sorry.
That's why I did it.
All right, so we're back to this motion. I was trying to keep it super clear here. Back to the original motion by Mr. Becker, which was to approve. So if you are against this, you would vote no. Is there any further discussion? No. All right. All in favor of this, please say aye. All opposed?
No.
No.
Sorry, Mr. Sudduth.
Who voted no and who voted yes?
We all voted no.
Okay.
Who voted yes?
It was unanimous.
No.
Alrighty. B7, which is general session. This is so last session, we had a request from Judge Blanton for a request for for an FTE, fully loaded. This is a request similar to what we did for the law department for prorated funds, not for a full FTE, just for prorated funds for a contract position. Is that correct, Mr. Long?
No, there's a couple of issues. Because there was a question about contracted employees, but to be a contracted employee, generally you can't have other employees in the same position, or you can't really supervise them. They kind of do their own work. So these would actually have to be an employee. And the other issue that we ran into, and that's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
If you work more than 30 hours for 30 hours per week for 120 days, you're required to provide health insurance. And then the other one is if you're working more than 32 hours a week consecutively, we have to provide TCRS. So one, if we do anything, it'll need to be a full or part-time employees, because if you're contracted, then that means you basically contract them to do a job. They do the job. You don't really supervise them. And then the other issue, there's some safe harbor rules that if you've got other like employees, then we'd end up in the situation where they were considered employees, and we'd have to go back to Social Security, Medicare, and health later.
Okay, so basically, I mean, this is very similar to the first one we did before. It's just prorated.
Except the first one we did part-time, and they didn't reach the 30 hours at 122.
So I guess we need a motion, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a second. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. So, Ms. Long, we had a discussion about this, and you gave me some history that I didn't know was, I didn't realize it happened. So wasn't there a position added last cycle?
It was several cycles ago, and I believe the original understanding was that it was to be
shared.
A shared employee, and do you remember that too? A shared employee, or Miss Browning said she remembered. I don't know if you recall.
I thought it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
That
it was going to be used
like
for
a floater position.
Like a floater
I don't know.
position, right? But talking to the judge here, that's not a floater. It's all in the other court.
It's all been in, if I may address.
Yes, sir.
This position was created about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and I think it originally was set that way. However, it's all been under courtroom B budget, and they work exclusively in courtroom B. Just to give you a little history, obviously when Judge Carter got sick, the necessity was to have both employees there, but it has never been a shared position. It's always been 2 in B, and we only have 1 in courtroom A. To give you a little bit of history of how this works, courtroom B, and this is not a slam on them at all, because we're going to do about 16,000 cases this year in each court. All right? So she has, Judge McCormick has 2 judicial assistants. She's responsible for her court and mental health court. Courtroom A, which is my court, I have 1 judicial assistant. I'm responsible for my courtroom. I'm responsible for all of county probation. I'm responsible for all of recovery court. My judicial assistant, in addition to helping me in court, she does the payroll for my court, for all of recovery court, and for all of county probation. She is also the coordinator to get people here from other counties that are on the docket. When we have court in my court, there is nobody in my office. You try to call me, you're not going to get anybody, because there's nobody there to answer the phone. The only way you're going to get in touch with me or anything to do in my court is to come down to court and say, hey, I need to talk to you. And I have to have a break in order to do so. If my assistant wants to take off on vacation, she can. She can take off whenever we have court, that we don't have court, or if I'm going to a conference. If she's sick, then we're scrambling. Fortunately, she's been in good health. She's been with the county 20 plus years. I have a part-time person that is actually paid through probation that comes and helps about 18 hours a week. Next week, it'll be her 80th birthday. She doesn't want to work anymore, but she refuses to let my assistant suffer and having to do it all. I have a $326,000 budget. I've got one of the smallest budgets in the county. And we do 16,000 cases. We run all recovery court. We run all of county probation. And she does the payroll. She makes sure they get their longevity pay. She figures that. She figures their vacation hours that they get accrued. The only time that she is not in court with me is on Thursdays. And that's her catch-up day, actually. And so I'm in the court on civil docket by myself on those days. But the rest of the time, she's there. One thing I know that you all talked about, no new money, and the recession's coming. There's one thing that does not stop during a recession, and that is crime. And I expect that our numbers will go up as they typically do during a recession. Today I had over 100 cases. I walked out of my court 6:15 tonight to come here for a 7 o'clock budget committee. All right, so that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night. I don't leave my court till after 6 o'clock, and neither does she. But she's there before me in the morning, and she's there when I leave at night. We usually walk out together. And so it's kind of like what you talked about when you had this appropriation 4 years ago, and it was all in one. It's been absorbed into that court. It's necessary for that court. They need that person. I also need a person. This has been approved by the budget the last 2 years, only to have a week before the budget approved, then come into the office and say, sorry, your person's not. Quite frankly, I hope I don't lose both employees, because then we'd really be up the creek. So that's why I put it on the ask for it the last time. That's why when it didn't make it, I came back and tried to get innovative to see how I could provide the services. Look, like I said, if you come to my office between 8:30 and 6, you're not going to get anybody, because we're going to be in the court, and I'm not going to leave the bench to come talk to somebody on the meeting when I've got people out there that are waiting on me to hear their cases. It's what my job is. So, that's why I come to you the last time. I wasn't able to be, actually I was here, then the meeting got canceled and it was rescheduled the following week, and I had a prior commitment. I had a judicial conference to go to, and I could not be here. So that's why I put this back on the budget to ask for that help. We desperately need it. And yes, I'm sure there's going to be every other department head come and said, we need help, Coach needs help. I don't have anybody in my office. They're with me in court. And then they stay after and after and after and after to get everything else done. So that's why I need another person.
I feel bad that I campaigned for you.
Ms. Hyde was in queue here. Go ahead,
Yes,
sir.
she is.
Okay. I wish I had spoken maybe after you had come, Judge. What I said about spending a few minutes ago, really, I think this is an exception as I see it, because there's an inequity here in what we've done with employees with the court system, and we can't expect one person to perform the duties as they should when that employee, for some reason, didn't get to his courtroom. This is not a very fair situation at all as far as what he needs to perform his duties. No fault of his, no fault of something that happened somewhere along the way. And I think that if we correct this inequity, then we can go from there with some of the conservative kind of thoughts that we have about what we need to do. But I'm not a voting member of this committee, but I certainly would ask the committee to correct this inequity, and then we'll go from there.
go ahead and move to, we have a motion to approve, or is a motion for discussion? And we have one.
To approve.
There was a motion to approve. Any further discussion?
You gonna wait the second reading?
Who's, so, that's fine with the second?
This was my
Wait,
thing.
if you have the, oh, you did the second? All righty. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So we're on B8, liquidation of PO. Do we need any movement? Do we need this?
Yes, we need to, about the PO.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, this is a PO. It was paid in the current, in the prior year, and it was actually for the current year. So when the budget got carried over for the current construction of the Justice Center, it was $165,159. These are bond proceeds, and they do need to be reappropriated for the project. They do need to be used for the project. It's $165,159, and they are in the restricted bond balance. We'll need them to continue the project.
Is this new, this is,
It's in the reserve there. It's from the bond proceeds. It's sitting in the reserve account to
Okay.
get appropriated.
Got
And
it.
it won't need to waive the second reading because there's no
Yeah.
rush on it.
Motion.
So,
any discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
One. Okay, now we're on to B9. This is, I put this in front of everybody. This is one I added earlier. This is just a transfer from $4,300 from pipe and plastic to furniture, fixtures, small amount from
Motion.
highways.
Approved.
we don't need to get the full commission because it's between major categories.
Yeah, that's right. It's, so, say that again?
You don't need to go to the full commission because it's between major categories.
Okay, got it. We have a motion.
Motion to approve and waive the second.
Do we need a second reading now? Because it's below 5,000, right?
And it's below 5 and it's just a transfer, but it's one that needs to go to the commission. So
Yeah, so we'll go, so we don't need that. Second, all right. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, number 10, B10, this one, I cannot read my own note here.
The Comer Barn.
Comer Barn, okay.
I guess the question is, giving it back to the state, part of the condition was $250,000 they gave us to give back, so
We'll need to appropriate it, just appropriate $250 back to the state.
I so move.
Second. I didn't hear that. What's the
There was a
motion?
motion
Appropriate
to appropriate
$250 back to the
$250, give back to
state.
the
The grant
state.
money they gave us, give it back. Was that money given to the school board already, or do we still have that?
We still got all the funds.
Okay.
We've got the money from the hospital, we've got the money from the state, and we also have a donation we'll need to repay also. And I don't remember the exact amount of the donation, but I remember you telling me.
I would like to, I guess, I'll, if I can extend my motion to put the money back in the hospital fund.
And pay the donation back to the donor.
How much was the donation, like $3,000 or something?
I believe it was $3,000 to
The
$5,000.
de minimis.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
But we'll provide you the amount, and then the $250 back to the state.
Sounds good.
And all of it won't go to the hospital, because I think there was about 8 or 9 used for some kind of consultant out of the hospital. As far as I recall, it could be a little more or less.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second. Any question?
Yeah, so what happens to the deed? What happens to the deed? Did the legislative approve the giving the? Okay.
Yes.
So that doesn't have to come from here?
No, it's just the money.
Okay.
I added this to the, just because we did that, I wanted to add that to this.
Yeah. Good. I'm good with that. I just wanted to make sure.
Any other questions? Any further discussion? All right. All in favor? And this is for
Do we
just
need to wait a
business.
second? I apologize for asking. I'm not up on the speed on the way second reading.
You will need to waive the second.
I'll have to, we'll waive the second reading
On a unanimous.
on the unanimous.
You good
I'll
with that?
still second.
Okay. All right. All in favor of appropriating funds to give back to the state and the $3,000 donation? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passed unanimously. Here you go, Mr. Mansfield.
Thank you.
Extension of law. director.
Extension of the law, so this is,
I'll make a motion to extend his pay.
what, we didn't determine a time period, this.
Where are we with the search?
The goal, we're starting interviews next week with candidates, and the cutoff is December the 1st, which is a Thursday. The goal would be to send recommendations to legislative and hopefully vote in December.
So December 19th is when the county commission.
So
would meet.
45 days. Roughly. 30, I mean.
What would we need to do?
And
So I would say, if we extend it until, I would say mid-January, right?
probably, whoever
So even if
comes
they
on is
start
gonna have,
So 60 days.
60 days?
Yeah.
so whoever comes on is gonna have some sort of leeway after they're voted in, of notice to their current employer, but I have no idea how that long it'd actually be.
You could do up to 60 days until the new director's appointed.
All right.
If he's
Yeah,
appointed
I'll
earlier
make a
than
motion
60, then we'll stop.
to extend it up to 60 days or until the new director
Whichever is
starts
first.
employment, whichever is first.
Okay.
Comes into the office.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second.
Do you want to do appointment or when he first starts employment? Because he may be appointed and not start for several days.
That's his motion.
Start employment, okay. That makes more sense.
All righty. Any discussion here? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries unanimously. Now we're into transfers, getting close.
The first one is for the volunteer fire department for the 9 fire departments divided by 91944.
Second.
Any discussion here?
You don't need to go to the full board for
Yep.
approval.
Do we need to have the second reading on this?
It is up to you. I would say yes, just for caution.
Okay. So you want to amend that for this, if unanimous?
With unanimous, we'll waive the second
We have a
reading.
second reading. All right. Any discussion? All voting to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Item 2
Unanimous.
is out of the remaining of the 1.2 additional funds for $18,000 for, up to $18,000 for survey and geotechnical fees for the Oak Grove Volunteer Fire Department construction. Was sent from emergency services and.
This says
through Gen
pending
Ops.
general operations.
It's been through Gen Ops since then, so it's
So I entertain a motion to approve this. Or to,
I'll let you finish your motions.
no, I don't have the motion. I'm just saying I entertain a motion of some sort.
Well, if it's been through Gen Ops, can you explain?
Just the surveying.
Just the surveying.
Just their
And the
surveying and geotechnical, we have not,
I move for discussion.
okay?
geotechnical slash
Yeah,
environmental.
Can we get a
Right.
second?
Second.
All right, there we go.
All fair side.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There you
If I
go.
may.
Yes, sir.
So, I'm opposed to this. I've definitely fought for our volunteer fire departments and got money back on the budget when they got killed back in 2019, along with Mo. But, I opposed this when they took $1.3 million out of our debt service fund to do this, to buy brand new trucks, back in June. And, I don't, it's a dangerous game we're playing and getting in the process of buying brand new $500,000, $600,000 trucks for volunteer fire departments when they usually, I know cities are coming up and you can buy them for a fraction of that cost or they donate them to you. So I'm not a fan of this, and plus this to me, I warned about this from the floor in June, that this is setting up for fire tax districts, which I'm adamantly opposed to, and I know the county residents are opposed to fire tax districts, and I will reject anything that comes from CTAS, because CTAS is very in favor of fire tax districts, and I definitely disagree with CTAS on that. This is something I've discussed with commissioners past, before I even got elected, and back in 2018, and so the fact that we're looking at building a building, technically we're not supposed to be, it's a non-profit allocation is what this is, anything we do for volunteer fire, because they're not a county service, it's a volunteer. And so like the Shackle Island Fire Department, it's not a fire department, it's a community center, and that's how they get it passed. And so this, it's crazy that this was not planned out or talked about or thought through that you're gonna try to buy brand new fire trucks and then you don't have any place to put them. I just don't quite understand that, and I don't know if the money's been appropriated for those trucks yet or not from our debt services when we took 2 pennies out in June. But I'm just not for this appropriation or this item of something that I'm not gonna vote for to be done at this time. I've just got a lot of problems with this right now, so.
Go ahead.
I apologize, so this is $18,000 for?
Yeah, I don't understand what this is.
It's a survey to see if they wanna build a building
10 to
for
6.
fire trucks that we appropriated $1.3 million.
Okay, so this is survey and geotechnical fees.
Or environmental, yeah.
It's because
For a building?
the land that they're wanting to use is owned by the Resource Authority, and the Resource Authority is willing to transfer it. But we want to, before we could even begin that process, we need to have a survey to say what exactly the land we're talking about is. Make sure we know we're all on the same page there, and also determine if there's any issues with being inside basically the curtain of too close to a closed off landfill. Make sure you can't disturb any land that is within a certain distance of that. Make sure there's no issues with that before.
Make sure
This
it's
is for
usable.
those related to a new building they want to build for the new trucks.
Where is this new building?
It's
the airport resource, excuse me, the dump. No, the dump, yeah, the dump.
That's one of the reasons it was sent back to general offices. There was discussion of being an add-on, and then later it was a new building. And then there was some questions about how close it is to towers, how close it is to the lines, the other building, the roads. There's a whole group of questions that ensued after the initial discussions.
This is just a general comment, because this has happened a couple times. I mean, I feel like at some point we gotta be comfortable, like, moving or killing. And
I make a motion that we deny this request.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion for the motion on the floor? Okay. All in favor of the motion to deny this request, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Mr. Long, C2 payroll. Those are
Okay.
both transfers, right?
There's two of them, there's
Yep.
transfers. The first one's to transfer money into part-time for when they were transitioning to Mr. Isabel's office, and it's just a line item. Item B is for finance. I'm asking to move money from what I call library or part-time to overtime, because right now our comp time's maxed out on a couple employees because our old payroll software is dying and we're implementing the new and also processing these COVID-19
Motion to
payments.
group and approve A and B and waive the second reading.
Second motion.
All righty. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. And
Any opposed? Okay, motion passed unanimously.
3A is about the library system. If you look to the attachment, there's actually a policy that any of the optional codes, which would be locations, if they're in your original budget, require the budget committee's approval. And they're asking to move from undefined over to the different locations.
We got a second. Any discussion here? I would just know, I discussed it with you. I'm in favor of this. I think this makes sense. Any discussion on this? Everybody get a chance to read it. I know we've been through a lot. Okay. All in favor of approving this? Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty.
Item B is just your other miscellaneous. There's some large ones on the bottom, but the first one is the flooring replacement removed with between the line items that's asked to be reappropriated for. And then the bottom two is to do with this line item movement from the bond proceeds for the construction of the judicial center. And then the rest of it is just small operational ones. But if anybody has any questions, I can probably answer those pretty well.
What's the total?
Well, we usually don't total, they just run by each department.
Yeah, there's nothing new here, right? There's no new funds.
No, it's between line items, all of them are.
Okay.
All right.
We can put a total on for you.
What's the astro?
Yeah, I knew there was gonna be a question.
The
on that one.
astrophysics is the thing used to, the metal detectors at the front of the building.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got one and we need two more for the new building to cover the exits, my understanding, or the exits and entrances.
Motion approved.
Got a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All righty. D1,
Then the last one is a refund, and that's because of
Motion
a
approved.
audit.
Second. All right.
First party audit.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion to adjourn. All right, all in favor? Aye. All righty,
You
thanks,
got
guys.
started, well, you didn't buy that big of a
We got started like a summer, it ran over.
And you knocked some, well, you knocked